At the wedding, I was the forgotten sister until a billionaire guest stood up, bowed to me, and thanked me for saving his global deal. The entire ballroom went silent. This was it. The moment I walked into my sister's opulent wedding, I knew I was stepping into a battlefield of judgment, but I had no idea just how dramatically the night would expose the brutal hypocrisy of my own family. Honestly, it felt like their carefully constructed world was about to shatter, not for me, but because of me. Asterisk, asterisk. I remember gripping my clutch purse so tightly my knuckles turned bone white against the black leather. Ahead of me, Brielle's new in-laws estate loomed, a Victorian monstrosity, dripping with wealth and tradition. Fairy lights glittered, illuminating a parade of happy families climbing the wide stone steps, and there I was, on Selma, standing utterly alone at the bottom, frozen in place. My sleek, dark chocolate dress was a deliberate defiance against this sea of pastel chiffon and floral patterns floating up those stairs. As the late afternoon sun glinted off diamond earrings and polished cufflinks, guests turned to stare. You could feel their whispers drifting down to me. Is that the one who's still single? Brielle's sister? My spine straightened, and I forced my feet to move. One step, then another. The stone felt solid beneath my heels, a stark contrast to the churning nausea in my stomach. A man in a tailored suit murmured as I passed, quite accomplished in her field. His companion nodded, too busy with her job to settle down. Such a shame, not getting any younger. I kept my chin at that precise angle, not too high to seem arrogant, not too low to appear ashamed. Every eye tracked me, measuring, calculating, judging. Brielle's new in-laws near the entrance practically dissected me with their gaze. It brought back all those memories, you know? Like when I was 11, hunched over circuit boards while Brielle practiced cheerleading in the yard. Mom's voice, ringing through the house. Aunt Selma, Catherine, Rourke, come downstairs this instant. After she'd found I'd dismantled the family computer. Why can't you be more like your sister? Dad would ask, shaking his head. When I showed him the programming language I'd taught myself at 13. Girls don't build computers, Mom insisted. They build families. The summer I was 15, she grounded me for attending robotics camp instead of the school dance where Brielle was crowned queen. That night, lying in bed, I promised myself, someday they'd understand my worth. That day hadn't arrived. I reached the crowded foyer where my mother held court, radiant in lavender silk. Her eyes swept over me as I approached, her smile tightening at the corners. Aunt Selma, darling. She leaned in for an air kiss that never quite touched my cheek. Her lily of the valley perfume, the same one since I was born, enveloped me, thick with memories. You could have worn something brighter, dear. This is a celebration, not a funeral. Before I could even think of a comeback, Brielle floated into view, a vision in white. Her third wedding gown, each more elaborate than the last. Our eyes met for a fleeting second. Glad you made it, she said, her voice cool as mountain water, before turning to engulf a couple behind me in exclamations of delight. The Harringtons. I'm so thrilled you could come. Just like that, I was dismissed. A server passed with champagne, and I took a glass, fighting the urge to gulp it down. Quite the extravagant affair, commented a woman with an elaborate updo. Your sister certainly knows how to put on a show. She certainly does, I replied, refusing to offer the expected compliment. I navigated through clusters of conversation, feeling the subtle shift as people noticed me, then just as quickly dismissed me. The weight of solitude grew heavier with each step. Finally, I found refuge at a corner table, trading my emptied champagne for club soda. Should I just leave? Invent some excuse about an early meeting? The thought was so tempting, but I knew the headlines it would create in family lore. Selma, too selfish to stay for her sisters. Special day. A woman like that. A voice drifted from the next table. Career first types. Probably expects applause just for showing up. I sipped my club soda, the bubbles sharp against my tongue. The condensation on the glass mirrored the cold sweat forming between my shoulder blades. 3 more hours. I could survive 3 more hours of this. But surviving isn't living. Is it? And I'd spent a lifetime doing just that, existing in the shadow of the golden child. I stared at the little calligraphy card in my hand, turning it over as if there might be some mistake. Table 14. The farthest corner from the head table, practically hidden behind a structural column. I looked up to watch Brielle personally escorting the Hendersons, people-eyed. Never even heard her mention, to their seats at table 3, her arm linked through Mrs. Henderson's, laughing like old friends. Miss Rourke. A young woman in a black pantsuit appeared. Beside me, clipboard in hand. I can show you to your table. The question slipped out before I could catch it. My sister didn't assign me herself? The wedding planner's smile didn't reach her eyes. Miss Brielle has a system. This way, please. I followed her past tables of laughing guests, past childhood neighbors, college roommates, business associates, tennis partners. We stopped at a table populated with distant cousins from Wyoming and an elderly great-aunt who kept mistaking me for someone named Patricia. Here you are, the planner said brightly. I scanned the table, noting how conversation dipped upon my arrival. Thank you, I murmured, settling into the only empty chair. Cousin Marlene leaned forward. We were just saying how lovely everything is. Did you see the programs? Such beautiful printing. I hadn't, actually. A cream-colored booklet sat at each place setting, embossed with silver foil. I opened mine to find 3 pages dedicated to Brielle's life story, her cheerleading championships, her charity work with disadvantaged poodles, her interior design business that consisted of redecorating friends' summer homes. My eyes scanned for any mention of her sister, the CEO. Nothing. It's comprehensive, I said, closing the booklet. My mother materialized beside our table, her lavender silk shimmering under the crystal chandeliers. She placed one manicured hand on my shoulder, addressing the table, but pointedly not me. Everyone enjoying themselves? Wonderful. Have you all met my other daughter? This is Anselma. She works with computers. Works with computers, as if I repair printers at the local library. As if I haven't built a publicly traded company valued at nearly $1 billion. As if I haven't revolutionized how AI systems recover from catastrophic failures. Actually, Mother, oh, there's Margaret Wilson. Must say hello. She floated away before I could finish, her perfume lingering like an accusation. Servers arrived with the first course, a delicate arrangement of beets and goat cheese. I took a bite, grateful for the momentary distraction. 2 tables over, Brielle's new husband Carter stood chatting with his groomsmen, his gaze sweeping past me as if I were part of the wallpaper. We'd met 6 times. Not once had he asked a single question about my life. Family. Photos on the terrace in 5 minutes, called the photographer a bearded man with too many. Fountain. She caught my eye briefly, then turned to the woman beside her. Not everyone can find love like I have, she said, her voice pitched just loud enough to reach me. Some have to settle for other things. The woman glanced my way, then back at Brielle with a knowing smile. Mother appeared at my elbow, glass in hand. Darling, that gentleman from Carter's firm was asking about you. Single, divorced last year. You should introduce yourself. I took a slow breath. I'm not interested, Mother. Her face tightened almost imperceptibly. I just want to see you settled before I'm gone, dear. Is that so wrong? Before I could answer, a tall man with silver temples caught my attention from across the room. He stood apart from the others, one hand in the pocket of his impeccably tailored suit. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't watching Brielle. He was watching me, with eyes that missed nothing. Who is that? I asked, nodding subtly in his direction. Mother followed my gaze. Aldrich Welling. Carter's uncle. Terribly wealthy. Terribly powerful. Transportation magnate or some such. Bit of an oddity in the family. Never married. For a moment, his eyes met mine, and something passed between us, a flicker of recognition, perhaps, and understanding. Then father took the microphone, tapping it twice. "I'd like to propose a toast," he announced, raising his glass. "To family values. To tradition. To my beautiful daughter who exemplifies everything we've tried to instill in our children." The room erupted in applause. I clapped mechanically, feeling the sting of exclusion in every word he didn't say. 3 weddings for Brielle, someone whispered behind me. Not even one date for her sister. I gripped my champagne flute tighter, the stem threatening to snap. Was independence worth this isolation? This constant reminder that I'd failed at the only metrics my family valued? Father's speech continued, a litany of Brielle's accomplishments that somehow never included graduating high school or holding a job for more than 6 months. When he finished, I forced myself to approach the head table to congratulate Carter despite the cold assessment in his eyes. "Welcome to the family," I said, meaning it despite everything. As I turned to leave, a woman touched my arm. "Excuse me, didn't I see your name in Forbes? Something about neural networks." For the first time since arriving, my smile felt genuine. "Yes, last month's issue. We're revolutionizing how AI systems recover from critical failures." "Fascinating," she said, and remarkably, she seemed to mean it. For one brief moment in this crucible of judgment and exclusion, someone saw me. 15 minutes later, Uncle Teddy, one of the few family members who preferred boardrooms over ballrooms, raised his glass with a wink that made the crowd titter. His toast carried just enough edge to sting without seeming deliberately cruel. I took a measured sip of champagne, my face a careful mask of polite attention. Around me, Brielle's bridesmaids exchanged glances, their pastel dresses rustling as they leaned together, whispering behind manicured hands. The reception flowed around me like water around a stone. I'd claimed a corner at table 16 as far from the head table as the seating chart allowed. My tablemates, distant cousins and forgotten high school acquaintances, had long since abandoned their seats for the dance floor or the open bar. "Aunt Selma, darling?" Aunt Eleanor appeared beside me, her voice honeyed with false concern. She placed a hand heavy with cocktail rings on my bare shoulder. 35 now, isn't it? Have you given any thought to freezing your eggs? The biological clock waits for no woman, regardless of how many promotions she gets. I met her gaze directly. "My eggs and I have an understanding, Aunt Eleanor. They don't pressure me about my career choices, and I don't pressure them about their timeline." Her mouth puckered like she'd bitten into something sour. "Well, I just worry you won't find time for what matters before it's too late." "What matters is relative," I replied, taking another sip of champagne. She retreated, mission accomplished, another barb delivered. I watched her rejoin a circle of blue-haired matriarchs who glanced my way with synchronized concern. The weight of solitude pressed down, yet something felt different tonight. I straightened my spine and let my gaze drift across the reception hall with its crystal chandeliers and floral arrangements that cost more than my first car. The string quartet played something classical that Mother had selected, insisting Brielle's preference for contemporary music would cheapen the atmosphere. A memory surfaced. 3 years ago, signing the contract that secured my company's first $1 million client. My hand hadn't trembled then, though my parents had warned the business would fail within 6 months. "You're diving into a male-dominated field with no connections," Father had said over Sunday dinner. "Be realistic about your chances, Aunt Selma." I'd proven him wrong. Proven all of them wrong. Yet here I sat, still seeking validation from people who measured success in diamond rings and monogram towels. Then the thought hit me with unexpected force. Their metrics don't matter. I've built something valuable. Something that exists and functions and helps people, regardless of whether anyone in this room understands it. Brielle appeared beside my table, champagne flute dangling from her fingers. The tulle of her gown brushed against my arm as she leaned down. "Couldn't you have brought someone?" she asked. Her voice pitched low. "Anyone?" You're making us look bad. I gazed up at my sister, radiant in white satin for the third time in 8 years. Making who look bad, exactly? The family. She glanced around to ensure we weren't overheard. People are talking. 300 guests and not one person here for you. I didn't realize I needed a +1 to feel complete. My voice remained steady, neither apologetic nor challenging. Brielle's perfect features tightened. That's not what isn't it? I cut her off gently. 3 weddings for you, and at each one, the same concern, not for my happiness, but for appearances. She opened her mouth to respond when movement at the head table caught our attention. Aldrich Welling, Carter's uncle and chairman of Welling International, rose from his seat. His tall frame, impeccable in a charcoal suit, commanded attention without effort. Silver hair caught the light as he navigated between tables with deliberate steps. The room quieted, conversations dropping to whispers, then silence. Brielle watched with narrowed eyes as Aldrich approached. Not her, but me. He stopped directly before my chair. His weathered face, lined with 60-some years of experience, regarded me with unmistakable recognition. Then, to the astonishment of everyone watching, Aldrich Welling bowed. Not a casual nod, but a deep, respectful inclination that spoke volumes in a language the entire room understood. Miss Rourke, he said, his voice carrying in the stunned silence. Your keynote at the Brussels summit changed how we approach cross-border tech mergers. The ethical framework you presented saved our Asian expansion from potentially catastrophic regulatory pitfalls. I owe you thanks. Time seemed suspended. Not a glass clinked, not a chair scraped. 300 pairs of eyes fixed on this tableau, a respected titan of industry paying homage to the woman they'd dismissed for years. From my peripheral vision, I saw Mother's champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. Father's jaw had gone slack. The bridesmaids had stopped whispering. And Brielle stared as though seeing me for the first time. I felt oddly calm. Thank you, Mr. Welling. I'm glad the framework proved useful. No gloating. No triumphant glances at my family. In this moment of vindication, I realized I never needed their validation. The worth of my work existed independent of their recognition. I rose to my full height, feeling lighter than I had all day. The burden of seeking approval slipped away, leaving my shoulders straighter, my chin at a more natural angle. The integration of ethical considerations with practical compliance was particularly impressive, Aldrich continued, reaching into his jacket. I'd like to discuss potential applications at Welling International, if you're amenable. He extended a business card, heavy stock with embossed lettering. I accepted it with a nod. I'd be interested in that conversation. Around us, the room remained suspended in collective shock. I could see Mother and Brielle exchanging panicked glances, a silent communication passing between them. Their world had tilted. Social hierarchies suddenly scrambled by this public acknowledgement. I was preparing my next move. A gracious exit, perhaps, when Mother appeared at my side, her lavender silk rustling with urgency. Her smile strained at the corners as she placed herself between me and Aldrich. Darling, you never told us how important your work is. She looped her arm through mine, claiming connection. Her fingers dug into my forearm with surprising strength. Brielle materialized on my other side, her wedding dress engulfing us in a cloud of white. My brilliant sister, she announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Her arm linked possessively through mine, completing the family tableau. Their changed demeanor hung between us, transparent as glass and just as fragile. I met Aldrich's eyes over Mother's quiffed head. A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth. He saw the performance for exactly what it was. The question now wasn't whether I'd accept their sudden interest, but what I'd do with this unexpected power shift. The answer waited inside me, clear and certain as the Brussels keynote they never bothered to attend. Mother's arm snaked around my waist, pulling me against lavender silk and lily of the valley perfume. Her voice rose an octave, addressing the circle of guests now watching us with undisguised curiosity. We've always been so proud of Aunt Selma's accomplishments. I felt my spine stiffen. For 20 years my achievements had collected dust, while Brielle's engagements warranted champagne and newspaper announcements. Now Mother beamed as though she'd attended every product launch, read every article, celebrated every milestone. My work has been important for years, I said, keeping my tone neutral despite the hurricane brewing in my chest. Nothing's changed today. She squeezed my waist harder. I stepped sideways, creating space between us. The move didn't go unnoticed by Aldrich Welling, who watched with the shrewd assessment of a man who's witnessed 1,000 corporate takeover attempts. Brielle appeared at my other side, her white gown rustling like expensive tissue paper. She looped her arm through mine, a gesture so foreign I nearly flinched. We've always been each other's biggest supporters, she announced to the gathering crowd, ever since we were little girls. The memory surfaced unbidden. 16 years old, my first coding competition. The gymnasium was empty except for my computer science teacher. My family seat's vacant because Brielle had a cheer competition the same day. I swallowed hard. Father materialized with 3 champagne flutes, handing one to me with a flourish. To my brilliant daughter. He raised his glass, eyes darting to Aldrich as if seeking approval. A woman in teal silk, Carter's Aunt Meredith, I recalled from the rehearsal dinner, tilted her head. Funny, I haven't heard about her accomplishments until now. What exactly does your company do, Aunt Selma? Before I could answer, Mother jumped in. Something with computers and that artificial was it. NeuroRevive specializes in adaptive recovery systems for artificial intelligence models, I said, cutting across her vague hand-waving. We're currently expanding into European markets. Aldrich nodded. Aunt Selma's Brussels keynote changed our entire approach to cross-border tech mergers. A young woman in her 20s broke away from Brielle's bridesmaids, approaching me with genuine interest. I'm finishing my computer science degree this year. Would you have any advice for someone entering the field? For the first time tonight, I felt my shoulders relax. Focus on solving problems no one else recognizes yet. That's where innovation happens. She nodded, eagerly, asking follow-up questions about internships and industry connections, completely ignoring Brielle, who shifted her weight from one satin heel to the other. Aldrich introduced me to a silver-haired man. Harrison here sits on 3 tech boards that might benefit from your expertise. The conversation flowed into technical waters, neural networks, ethical implementation, protocols, market applications. I found myself at the center of a growing circle answering questions with the confidence that comes from building something substantial. Brielle's smile calcified. Enough shop talk at my wedding. Her voice carried a sharp edge that sliced through conversation. We should be dancing, not discussing boring business things. Mother hovered at the periphery, her smile strained as terminology flew past her comprehension. She attempted to interject with mentions of my childhood. Aunt Selma was always taking things apart, but it missed the substance of our discussion. When Harrison asked about my company's founding, Father puffed up. We always knew she had potential. Actually, I said quietly, meeting his gaze. NeuroRevive was built without family investment. I secured initial funding from Westlake Ventures after being turned down by 17 other firms. The silence that followed spoke volumes. Aldrich's eyebrow lifted appreciatively. No family involvement at all? Harrison asked. No, I answered, the simple truth more powerful than any accusation. But that's common in tech startups. I saw the recognition in Aldrich's eyes. He understood what I wasn't saying. Brielle's third husband, Carter, joined our circle, his curiosity seemingly genuine. I read something about your company's ethical AI framework. That's the future, isn't it? I nodded, directing the conversation back to safer waters. The wedding has been beautiful. You both must be thrilled. My sister's face softened fractionally at the lifeline I'd thrown her, though her eyes remained wary. I'd neither gloated nor hidden my success, and somehow that balance felt like the greatest victory of all. The whispers had changed tone completely, where once they carried judgment about my solitary state. They now questioned the family suddenly claiming kinship with my achievements. Did you know her sister never even mentions her work? I overheard from a cluster of Carter's relatives. Mother's smile remained fixed in place, but her fingers worried the pearl strand at her neck. Father shifted uncomfortably when technical questions came his way, revealing the depth of his disinterest in my career. Through it all, I maintained a quiet dignity that required no audience, no validation. The weight that had pressed on my chest since childhood had lifted, not because Aldrich Welling bowed to me, but because I finally understood that I never needed their approval at all. The terrace air cooled my flushed skin as I escaped the reception's stifling atmosphere. Sunset painted the sky in amber and gold, a beautiful backdrop for Brielle's photographer, capturing spontaneous family moments. I stood apart, watching the performance unfold. My fingers traced the cold stone balustrade, anchoring me to something solid while my thoughts whirled like autumn leaves. A shadow fell across the stone, then another, then a third. There you are, darling. Mother's voice dripped with newfound sweetness as she glided toward me, Father and Brielle flanking her like twin sentinels. Their approach triggered an instinctive tightening in my chest, a familiar constriction I'd felt since childhood whenever they moved as a unit. Mother took my hands in hers, eyes shimmering with manufactured tears. We've always believed in you, darling, always. The lie hung between us, so transparent I could trace its outline with my finger. Father cleared his throat, straightening his bow tie. You should bring Aldrich to Sunday dinner. I'd love to discuss investment opportunities with him. His eyes gleamed with the same predatory look he gets when spotting vulnerable witnesses on the stand. Brielle stepped closer, her wedding gown rustling like whispers in the dark. You could at least try to look happy for me today instead of stealing attention. Her smile remained fixed, voice dropped to avoid the photographer's ears. This is my wedding. I breathed in the scent of blooming roses from the garden below, counting silently to 3. Before responding, my heartbeat accelerated. This moment, this exact moment, had played in my mind for years. The confrontation I'd both dreaded and craved. After all, we've sacrificed for you. Mother's voice rose an octave, her hand pressing against her lavender silk bodice. This family has always supported each other. Your mother's right, Father added, squeezing her shoulder. Remember who put you through college? The scholarship letters flashed in my memory, documents they never bothered to read, checks they never had to write. The family image matters on Selma. Brielle adjusted her veil, eyes darting toward her new in-laws across the terrace. We need to present a united front. The weight of their expectations pressed down on me, a familiar burden I'd carried since childhood. My hands trembled slightly, but not with shame or submission. Something else fluttered beneath my ribs, something with wings and teeth. I took a deep breath. The air filled my lungs completely for what felt like the first time. Today, are you proud because someone powerful said I matter, or because you finally believe it? Their faces froze in identical masks of surprise. The question hung in the air between us, undeniable now that it's been spoken aloud. When I launched NeuroRevive, you said it was just another computer thing, Mother. You were getting your hair done during the ribbon cutting. My voice remained level, quiet enough that nearby guests couldn't hear, but clear enough that my family couldn't pretend to misunderstand. I turned to Father. You told Aunt Sarah my business was just a hobby until the IPO, then suddenly it was our family business in your Christmas letter. His face flushed crimson beneath his silver hair. And you, Brielle? I met her wide eyes directly. When Forbes interviewed me, you told your friends I got lucky with some app thing. You've dismissed my career at every family dinner for the past decade. The photographer approached, sensing a moment Mother waved him away with frantic fingers. You don't get to claim credit for success you ridiculed. Each word emerged crystalline and precise. Real family supports each other before recognition comes. The fear in my stomach transformed into something steadier, more substantial. The ground beneath my feet felt suddenly solid. I needed your belief when no one else believed. Now, I don't need it at all. A silhouette appeared at the edge of my vision. Aldrich Welling stood nearby, his tall frame backlit by the setting sun. His presence froze the tableau, mother with lips parted mid-protest, father with hand half-raised, Brielle with tears welling in calculated precision. It takes no talent to inherit wealth. Aldrich's voice carried across the terrace, stopping nearby conversations. But Anselma built value where none existed. She's earned respect in rooms none of you will ever enter. The photographer stopped, camera lowered. Wedding guests turned toward us, their expressions ranging from fascination to discomfort. The silence spread like spilled wine across white linen. Mother stammered, we always knew Anselma was. Her words found no purchase. In the sudden vacuum, father shifted his weight, authority draining from his posture like air from a punctured tire. Brielle's tears spilled over, but they seemed performative now, a learned response without emotional weight behind them. I straightened my shoulders, feeling lighter than I had in years. Congratulations on your wedding, Brielle. I wish you happiness. The words held no anger, no bitterness, only finality. The bridge between us hasn't collapsed. I've simply stopped trying to cross it. I turned and walked away, leaving them standing in the golden light of sunset, their shadows stretching long behind them. My heels tapped a steady rhythm on the stone terrace as I moved forward, each step cameras around his neck. I rose dutifully and made my way outside, where mother was already arranging people with military precision. Taller ones in back, family in front, cousins on the left, please. When my turn came, she positioned me at the far edge, half obscured by Uncle Robert's substantial frame. Perfect, she said, stepping back to survey her work. When the photographer suggested I move forward, mother laughed. Oh no, we need symmetry. Anselma is fine, right where she is. After the photos, I found myself alone again, watching Brielle hold court by the champagne, carrying me further from their expectations and closer to my own truth. For the first time in my life, I didn't look back to see if they were watching me go. I stood alone on the terrace, the wedding cacophony reduced to a distant hum behind the heavy glass doors. For the first time today, my lips curved into a genuine smile. The night air caressed my face, cool and forgiving against my flushed skin. Something had shifted, a weight I'd carried for decades suddenly lifted, leaving me lighter than I'd felt since childhood. My shoulders dropped an inch, relaxation flowing through muscles that had been battle-ready since I arrived. Footsteps approached from behind, measured, deliberate. I turned to find Aldrich Welling, maintaining a respectful distance, his expression thoughtful rather than demanding. I hope I'm not intruding, he said, his voice carrying none of the false warmth my family had suddenly discovered. Not at all. He moved to stand beside me, both of us gazing out at the manicured gardens below. What you've built with Neural Revive is remarkable, he said after a comfortable silence. But what impressed me was watching you tonight. I glanced at him, questioning. You don't just build, you rebuild. That's rare. His eyes, sharp with intelligence, met mine. Most people can construct something from scratch. Far fewer can take broken pieces and transform them into something stronger than the original. The observation struck a chord so true I nearly flinched. I have a proposition, he continued. No family connections, no social obligations, purely business. My European division needs exactly what your team has developed. He handed me a business card, heavier than standard stock. Let's talk Monday. I'd like that, I answered, surprised by how much I meant it. 20 minutes later, I slid behind the wheel of my car alone by choice rather than exclusion. The windows rolled down at the touch of a button, and I breathed deeply as cool night air rushed in. The contrast with my tense arrival hours earlier couldn't be starker. Then, isolation felt like punishment. Now, solitude felt like freedom. I drove through the darkened streets, my mind tracing the years spent seeking approval from people who fundamentally misunderstood my worth. The folly of it struck me now, how I'd measured success through their dismissive eyes, when they never possessed the capacity to see what I was building. Self-validation was always the answer. I just needed to stop asking the wrong questions. My phone buzzed with a text message. Maya, my lead developer. How was the wedding? I considered the polite response, the social script. Instead, I pulled over and typed, unexpectedly, revealing, I'm finally free. Her response came immediately, about time. Team's ready for tomorrow's strategy session whenever you are. Plans crystallized in my mind for Mondays. Meeting not just for Welling's proposal, but something more. A mentorship program for women in tech. Scholarships for girls with soldering irons instead of tiaras. No one should need about to feel validated. I arrived at my apartment 30 minutes later, trading pinching heels for soft slippers. In the bathroom mirror, I paused, really looking at my reflection. The woman staring back appeared. Somehow different, not physically changed, but fundamentally altered. Hello, Anselma, I whispered to her. You were enough all along. My phone calendar blinked with a reminder for Monday's meeting with Welling. Beyond it stretched a future unburdened by the need for family approval, expanding with possibilities I'd earned through my own merit. On my balcony, I looked up at the scattered stars piercing through the city's glow. The truth settled inside me, no longer painful but clarifying. The most powerful recognition isn't public. It's internal. I've already earned my own applause.